welcome in our panel on this Thursday morning. We start with political analyst and Project 21 member Donna Jackson, back with us today. Donna, good morning. Senior contributor for The Federalist, Ben Weingarten, is here again, and former Trump campaign aide Rick Gates back with us as well. I guess the first thing we should jump into this morning is President Biden's infrastructure plan. He unveiled that in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania yesterday, and he is guaranteeing the vast majority of Americans that anyone making under $400,000 a year will not be affected by these tax increases. Take a listen.
I start with one rule. No one, we say it again, no one making under $400,000 will see their federal taxes go up, period.
All right, Rick Gates, we'll start with you. You spent a lot of time in the Trump White House. You were part of that now famous tax cut at the corporate rate, cutting it from 28 down to 21%. It did wonders for rank and file, everyday Americans. Do you believe Joe Biden?
I believe Joe Biden is creating a economic environment that's going to be very difficult. This infrastructure plan, first of all, doesn't even have much to do with infrastructure. It's more to do with climate change, energy, packing it with other money to go to state efforts. There's all sorts of issues here that need to be unpacked. And look, at the end of the day, this is a package that Joe Biden is proposing that's going to take 8 years of investment and 15 years to pay back. And throughout the history of our country, there's not been one instance where increasing corporate, taxes has been helpful to the American public and the American individual. So I think this is a very, very bad plan, period.
Yeah, I think, Donna, I found it interesting yesterday. Even some progressives, the far, far left of the Democratic Party, the Bernie Sanders part of the Democratic Party, they are pushing back, but for different reasons. They're upset that it doesn't spend enough money, but this means that they could have trouble getting it through the House and then certainly in the Senate.
Well, you know what? Listen, like you said, this infrastructure plan is really just a payout for special interest groups like the unions and environmentalists. But the thing that's very disturbing to me is this $174 billion for environmental justice. Listen to me. That's a disaster for minority communities. Environmental policies increase the cost of living expenses on average minority communities that are devastating. 1 in 3 minorities cannot afford their electric bill. And Joe Biden's answer is to put more charging stations in minority communities so that his environmental friends that might get lost on Martin Luther King Boulevard can get home. Listen, we have failing schools, high crime, we have crumbling buildings.
Yeah, bridges, tunnels, roads.
His priority is electric charging stations. Come on.
500,000 of these, Donna, too. And here's the thing, Benjamin, I'd like to bring you in, too, but putting this under the umbrella of it's for infrastructure is great, but right now it looks like just over 0.25%, 25% of this bill will actually go toward infrastructure. Infrastructure bills are usually pretty benign. They're usually really bipartisan. A lot of times they are Republican. You heard Joe Biden say it yesterday. Eisenhower put in the national highway system, and that's been, a huge success for a long time. A lot of that stuff needs to be repaired. If it was just that, I think the American people, more importantly right now, I think Congress, Benjamin, would be able to get behind this bill, but it's just not the case.
This is exactly what we'd expect from a 50-year-long swamp creature in good standing in Joe Biden.
It's a great point.
It's a dishonestly titled bill in that, as you note, it can barely even be qualified as an infrastructure bill. It's a slush fund, essentially, a payout to buy votes in the hopes that it will help in the midterm elections in 2022 and then beyond in 2024 as well. And to add to the dishonesty of it, of course, the cost for this massive bill, and maybe he anticipates other ones as well, always get passed on to the consumer, i.e. we, the American people. So It's dishonest. It's at best deceitful to say there will be no new taxes essentially for those making under $400,000 a year. Because in reality, we're all going to pay for this, if nothing else, ultimately due to the inflation that it's all going to generate when we have a budget that's so blown out that everything we're doing is debt financed. And you and I will all be paying the interest on the debt, and even that will barely cover everything.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, by the way, too? No one's talking about this, Rick. You were in the Trump White House, that 21% corporate tax cut. Don't forget, that's state and federal. So now it'll be at 28%, but really, if you combine state and federal, businesses are going to be paying up to 33%, because it's usually about 5% on top of whatever the bracket is, right? So 28 plus 5, around 33. China's at 25% right now. 24 other industrialized nations are at 25 or less, meaning this is also a very pro-China bill. I want to get into the situation at the border right now. We were able to dig up some sound bites out of the archive. We did not have to go too far back to find these, though. Take a listen. This is our now Vice President Kamala Harris on what she would do if there were a surge. And yes, I'm using the word surge at our southern border. Take a listen.
We've got a person who has put babies in cages and separated children from their parents. I will release children from cages. I will get rid of the private detention centers.
Oh, boy, that's July 2019 if you're just joining us. And I'm going to play you one more, then, Rick, we'll start with you. Elizabeth Warren on the border, same time period.
I've been down to the border. I have seen the mothers. I have seen the cages of babies. We must be a country that every day lives our values.
Rick, we all love our Democratic friends and our friends on the left, of course, okay? But I just wish there were some consistency. That's not 25 years ago. That's less than 2 years ago.
And this is exactly why this issue, the issue of immigration, cannot be politicized, because sound bites like that look good in an election year don't equate to exactly what's happening now, and more importantly, what the current leadership in the Biden administration is going to do about it. Kamala Harris has been completely absent, from this issue. I've said before, this is mission impossible. I think she's absolutely going to fail in terms of being at the head of trying to solve this issue. And the reality is, great thing about it is that this is not one that they can hide. Even though the Biden administration is attempting to prevent reporters from getting the facts, there are enough pictures, video, and graphics now, because it involves children, because there are serious issues to look at. And this humanitarian crisis is only going to get worse. And there's a huge vacuum of leadership, absent leadership in Biden and Kamala Harris. And until they come out with a plan, which they don't have a plan, there's no solution. So it's going to continue to get worse.
Yeah. Donna, do you think that on some level, President Trump would have been fine sort of staying out of it for a little while here? I mean, we're only 71 days into Joe Biden, and President Trump the Biden administration bashes his predecessor whenever they get an opportunity. Joe Biden did it yesterday in Pittsburgh again, which I think is almost forcing Donald Trump to come out and sort of defend his record only 71 days into the Biden administration.
Absolutely. I mean, he has to come in and show the contrast between what a great job he was doing on the border and what a terrible job this administration is doing. But let's really look at this. This is, for us, we're saying this is a disaster or this is a crisis. But for political operatives, this is a strategy for their long-term gain. They realize that with more illegal immigrants, it's counted into the number of congressional seats they can have in the House. So they're looking forward towards the census. They're also looking towards the fact that most immigrant kids vote Democrat. So this is a long-term strategy for them, even though they try to make it look like they have compassion. Yeah. But they don't. But this is exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, it's after the Civil War, African Americans largely voted Republican because Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. And I think that many of the kids that are crossing the border now, the numbers are astronomical. When they become 18, they will say, well, Joe Biden was in office when I became an American.
And that's the strategy.
And they'll turn Arizona and Texas blue. Speaking of blue, the Texas Rangers and every other Major League Baseball team will kick off their season today. I'm going to connect a couple dots here, so bear with me. Delta Airlines announced late yesterday that they are going to start selling middle seats on May 1st. What does baseball have to do with Delta Airlines? Well, I bring this up just because think about what you're doing. The three of you, matter of fact, the four of us, if we're on a big plane, could all be in the same row together, and we'd be about this close. We'd all be wearing masks. Delta says you still got to wear a mask, but apparently that's okay. But some ballparks Major League Baseball stadiums that seat between 30 and 50,000 are only going to allow 2,500 people in. And Joe Biden still doesn't think, and they're outdoors, by the way, almost every single one of them. And Joe Biden still doesn't think that's a good idea. Here he is talking with Sage Steele yesterday. Take a listen.
That's a decision they made. I think it's a mistake. They should listen to Dr. Fauci and the scientists and the experts. But I think it's not responsible.
All right, Rick, we'll start with you. He's talking about the Texas Rangers because they're allowing full fans at opening day today, full stadium.
Look, I think people have just been exhausted, over the issue. And Joe Biden says, listen to Dr. Fauci. Well, which Dr. Fauci are we listening to? The one that says we need to be 6 feet apart or 3 feet apart? The one that says we need to wear one mask or two masks or even a nose mask? So the problem is a lot of the scientific information, the disinformation that has been provided has created this environment where people are just absolutely exhausted over not being able to live normal lives. So I think in the context of these sporting events, particularly as we come into spring and the weather gets warmer, everybody's going to want to go to the baseball game. So I don't think Texas Rangers is going to be the only one. You're going to see, I think, an expansion of fans being able to go back to arenas and sports venues. They're just done. They're tired.
Benjamin, we got about 15 seconds left, and we can pick this back up at the top of the hour. But you see what I did there with Delta Airlines and Major League Baseball?
Yeah, first, let me just say, let's go Mets quickly. And second of all, let me add that, look, the reason, of course, Joe Biden defers to the scientists here is because they've politicized this issue, and that political power has accrued to politicians like Joe Biden. Whether it's on distancing or masking, it's politics that's triumphed over science, and virtue signaling that's triumphed over science as well. And that's what's behind these policies. It's a disaster for the country.
I'm a big Red Sox fan, so you just broke my heart there. But I did read that Jeff Pearlman book and the Dan Shaughnessy book.
Well, we both hate the Yankees, so it's fine.
We've got that in common. Panel, we will pick this back up at the. Donna, who's your baseball team?
Oh, it's the Dodgers.
The Dodgers. All right, I like that. I like Chavez Ravine. Good team out there, champions. All right, panel, we'll pick this back up top of the hour. We'll see you guys 18 minutes. Looking forward to it.